Someone told me that The Rock's newest movie was so bad it was good, so I decided to give it a watch. And now I'm on a quest to find a person who told me this movie was good and shove cookies up his... The Red One is the latest film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, what's that? It's not from the MCU? What do you mean it's not an MCU film? Captain America is in it. Are you sure? Because based on the script, the story beats, the pacing, the style of comedy, the camera shots, the massive multi-person fight scene at the end of the movie, and just about everything else about it makes this movie feel like an MCU film. But then again, almost every Hollywood film feels like that. It's kind of ironic that the people who are constantly preaching about diversity seem to only produce singular works designed for singular-minded entities. But anyway, the plot is simple, and I don't have a problem with the general premise. Mythological creatures exist, and Santa is one of them. There's an organization that monitors mythological activity, and Santa has a whole security system to protect him from bad actors. The ELF. Get it? The elf? Anyway, The Rock is the head commander of this thing. Santa gets kidnapped. This guy, known as the best tracker on the planet, was hired to help find him, so the mythology organization gets him to help track Santa down. Oh, and this guy, who I assume his name is Chris Evans because I could not be bothered to remember anyone's name in this movie, is a real bad dude, the stealing candy from a baby type, who has never believed in Santa. So The Rock and Chris Evans team up to find Santa, and, spoiler alert, they did. The first question I'm gonna ask, who was this movie for? It's a Christmas movie, and it stars The Rock and Captain America, so it should appeal to children. Christmas movies should only fall into two categories: movies for young children, or movies intended only for the older audiences to get a laugh out of their nostalgia. You know who Christmas movies shouldn't be aimed at? Teenagers. They're too old to accept the magical tales, but way too young to have a nostalgia and understanding of why those magical tales exist. Yet this movie is rated PG-13. So little kids shouldn't be seeing this thing, theoretically, but it's not for adults neither. It's far too childish in everything it does. Who this movie is for depends on which part of the movie you're watching. This movie exists so it can exist. That's the best way I can describe it. It tries to do what most Hollywood Christmas movies and TV shows have been trying to do, and that is fundamentally ruin the holiday. There is a reason we still tell kids the Santa tales, and why we keep it magical and mystical. Aside from the obvious stuff of it's just fun, it's also to tap into that part of the psyche. It's to help the kids evolve, to keep them wondering about this existence they live in. When you try to strip that away by making the North Pole all decked out in hyper-technological wonders, you take that away. It's not magic anymore. We don't have to wonder how anything happens. Everything is hooked up to the grid. They use apps and tablets and whatever else. That's how Santa does things. They tried to keep magic running side by side with it, but it just didn't work. They explain away almost everything with technology, but then try to shoehorn in the magic. Santa's sleigh is a technological marvel, requiring high-tech items, fuel, replacements, and all the rest. There's no magic in the sleigh, but the reindeer can still fly though. In fact, it felt like all of the technology was what was really making things happen. Because of the end of the movie, when they were the living presents, with all the focus they were putting on the sleigh and how technology worked, I legitimately forgot about the reindeer. There's a reason why technological constructions are frequently referred to as them being soulless. If you show a kid a magic trick, their eyes widen in wonder and excitement as they try and figure out what's going on. If you pull back the curtain and show the kid what you're doing before you do it, then there's no wonder of what just happened. It's all just mechanics. To relate to it in another way using video games, the first time you played Elden Ring, it was magical because it was a vast new landscape where you had no idea what was going to happen. You would discover things, learn how fighting worked, and have a blast as you just figured things out. The second run, now you know where things are, you can just go through the motion of doing what you need to do. You understand the mechanics. So it's not as special, not as magical. I will never understand the current cultural landscape of never-ending adult children who simultaneously refuse to grow up from their adolescence, but also attempt to destroy everything about childhood. Because of the mechanical, bureaucratic nature of everything in this movie, it made it too difficult to suspend my disbelief on multiple occasions. At some point, Chris Evans fights a whole army of the mythology organization's top trained soldiers, who are trying to avoid a global catastrophe, I think. I don't actually remember if there was going to be any consequences if Santa missed the year or not. There weren't really any stakes here. Anyway, these trained, superhuman magical entities, also armed with body armor and weapons that far surpass our technology, being so probably hundreds of years old, they all failed in their initial attempts to capture him after he was cornered. Was this Chris Evans character someone highly trained himself? No. The movie made it clear he was some skinny wuss who eats bad food, drinks himself to sleep, and sleeps in a bathtub. And he was able to defeat something like a dozen of these soldiers. Maybe you're all actually mistaken. Maybe this really is the MCU and this is actually Captain America in disguise. Because in one fight scene, when taking on supernatural snowmen with godlike levels of strength, he gets thrown full force into the wooden pillars of a roof and falls several feet to the ground. Was he in any way, shape, or form injured or otherwise inconvenienced by this? No, because this is the Hollywood MCU franchise, where every main character in every movie is completely invulnerable until the plot calls for it. They tried to shoehorn some message about making choices in life, which didn't work because nothing tied that message into the movie. Even worse, there were multiple instances where they could have done that, but they blew it. For example, Chris Evans' kid had a musical recital that evening. He mentioned it to his dad with the tone that it was dumb. Chris agreed with him, and that was that. Later on in the movie, it is revealed the son actually wants him to come, which Chris is now unable to because he's running around saving Christmas. But he didn't know that, because the kid didn't make it clear. And Chris says as much in the phone call with the unimportant mom that he did not know. That's a perfectly reasonable thing, but there was no real choice involved in this. What they could have done with this plot point is have Chris Evans know that his kid wanted him to come, but instead he played aloof or made up some BS excuse as to why he couldn't come, making it so that Chris chose not to go to the recital and bum his kid out. Then The Rock's message about the choices we make might have meant something. But since the people who made this are probably soulless themselves, they don't understand that there needs to be setups, connections, and payoffs to these timeless messages. Because if you don't ground them in something, they basically don't exist. Imagine two people laying down on some grass in the middle of the night, next to someone they love, watching the stars above them. Person A watches them, their beauty, their splendor, and contemplates the vastness of the universe. How a million different choices and circumstances led him here, next to this woman he loves. Even though the universe might seem infinite, in this moment, he might just be a speck of that infinity, but the love he feels for this woman seems to exceed even that. He turns to her, looks deep into her eyes, and with these feelings sweltering up inside him, he kisses her. Person B, while he's laying down looking at the stars, remembers how in that one movie or TV show the people kissed, so he wants to be just like that movie, so he goes in for the kiss. Do you see the problem here? Do you see why one kiss has a deep meaning and the other is just an empty husk of a concept? That's what this movie's messages feel like. I made this mistake in my Wish video, and I'm gonna avoid doing it again. I'm hammering this in post-script. I don't have outside sponsors to this channel, but I do run my own business where I sell anime-themed teas, coffees, and soaps. Ad revenue is too small, and I'm not even asking for free money. Buy yourself, or some friends and loved ones, the holidays are here after all, some of the best products that I personally make myself. Yeah, the coffee is roasted by me personally. This mix of mana potion tea, my concoction. I make, color, and put in the oils for the soaps. What led me to this business is a lifetime of having developed the soul of person A that we just spoke about. I take personal pride and passion in what I do. Aside from helping me live, I'm also in the early stages of developing a video game that will be full of that aforementioned soul. Every purchase will help towards that goal. Thank you for your support, and back to the video. There's one prime example of the movie not understanding how messages work that pissed me off a little bit with just how tone deaf it was. The beginning of the movie was a young Chris Evans showing his cousins that the presents are hidden in the closet and there's no Santa, showing us he has been a lying, thieving cynic his entire life. I think the closest explanation as to why he is like this might have been an offhand joke about how he doesn't have a dad, but if that was the reason as to why, they did a terrible job hammering it in. The Rock's character wants to retire because he doesn't see the Christmas spirit anymore. For the first time ever, more people are on the naughty list than the nice list. At the end of the movie, Chris Evans is talking with his kid on Santa's sleigh, and The Rock sees that Christmas cheer expressed as Chris Evans turns into that cynical child, laughing it up with his bastard child. I don't get it. Did this now wash away all of Chris's sins from his life? He was shown that he makes his living being a scumbag. Is it because he's now having a moment with his son that the whole everyone on the planet is getting worse message is suddenly invalidated? Someone explain to me how this scene is supposed to make sense. I don't know where to put this in the script, so I'll just plop this here. An example of the horrible direction of this film. The villain of this movie, a witch, is able to control people remotely, apparently. She only does it once. She takes control of and starts speaking out of this guy right here. Excuse me while I do what I can to avoid annoying copyright. So this is how the witch is speaking from where she is.
It has been many years.
And this is what comes out the other end.
The same thing I have always wanted for hundreds of years.
To make them behave.
Terrible direction. just terrible. Why the disparity between the two? To conclude, this movie was not so bad it was funny, it was just bad. A soulless movie that existed just so it could exist. That did nothing but further depreciate the special magical feelings of Christmas. That last part is why I don't just dislike this movie, but actively hate it. They hoped to cash in on big name celebrities and the holidays, and they failed. Now, thanks to that, I'm gonna have to be stuck with watching The Rock on WWE for the next few months, probably. My Christmas wish is that you like the video and subscribe, and buy some tea for the holidays and help this poor old T-Man out. If you don't, they will make a sequel to this movie.